Captain Arya Solis sat in the center of her small, high-tech cell, staring at the walls. The walls were not like any human-made metal she had ever seen. They seemed almost alive, pulsing with soft, green light, like the veins of some massive, alien plant. Outside her cell, alien guards moved with strange, fluid motions, their armored forms glinting under the pale glow of the ship. Arya had no weapon, no allies, and no immediate way to escape. She had been captured only hours ago. One moment she had been exploring the outer edges of the Veil Nebula, scanning a strange signal, and the next, she had been surrounded by Zalarian ships. Their technology was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, sleek, organic, and terrifyingly precise. Before she could even send a warning to Earth, they had teleported her aboard their massive vessel. Arya studied the guards carefully. They were tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they communicated in clicks and hums that she could barely interpret. She had learned quickly that they assumed she was just another human prisoner, weak, fragile, and unimportant. But Arya knew better. She was trained for situations like this. Every day of her life had prepared her to think, observe, and act. She could not rely on brute strength, but humans had a different weapon: intelligence. Her first hours in the cell were quiet, almost unbearable. She had nothing to do but watch the ship move. Slowly she realized that the ship itself seemed alive. The walls breathed, the lights pulsed, and tiny systems moved as if aware. It was an intelligent design, but one that seemed to ignore her. Or so she thought. Arya began to experiment. She hummed softly at first, testing the acoustics of her cell. Then she tapped the walls, trying to feel for resonance. The ship responded, but subtly. Lights flickered in patterns she had not caused, vents shifted, and small doors clicked open and shut. The guards noticed some anomalies but ignored them, assuming the ship was malfunctioning. She spent hours observing their behavior. The Zalarian guards were precise, but they were predictable. They followed routines, repeated gestures, and never adjusted for human unpredictability. Arya smiled quietly. That predictability was her advantage. Her thoughts drifted to the AI core she had overheard the aliens mention in their cliques. The core controlled the ship, and according to the guards, it responded to very specific inputs: commands, vibrations, and even voice patterns. Arya had an idea. Humans had unique vocal frequencies, and she could manipulate them carefully. She started practicing her voice. At first, she simply hummed. Then she tried tonal patterns, changing pitch and rhythm, experimenting with the subtle echoes in the cell. She imagined that the ship could hear her, even if the guards could not. And slowly, it seemed to respond. A faint hum echoed back from the walls. A panel shifted slightly. A small maintenance hatch clicked open. The guards noticed these minor anomalies but dismissed them. "Malfunction," they said in clicks and hums, each word sounding like a vibration in the metal floor. Arya knew better. Every shift of the ship was a hint, a response. Night fell aboard the Zalarian vessel, or what passed for night. The ship's corridors dimmed, and the soft green glow of the walls became more prominent. Arya had learned the schedule of the guards. There was a brief window, just after their evening patrol, when the cell was left unattended. This was her chance. She approached the small maintenance hatch that had clicked open. It was tiny, barely large enough for her to squeeze through, but it led into the ship itself. She pressed her ear to the opening, listening. Pipes hummed, lights flickered, and she could feel the faint pulse of energy. The ship was alive, reacting to her presence. Arya whispered a pattern of notes she had practiced. Almost immediately, the hatch vibrated and opened a little more. She smiled. The ship recognized something in her voice. It was subtle, yes, but enough to act on. The first step in her escape would be slow. She could not risk running blindly. The ship was massive, and the guards were ever present. She needed to learn its layout, its systems, its routines. And she had a secret advantage: her voice. She spent the next few hours exploring through the hatch. The corridors beyond were narrow, lined with glowing panels and pulsing conduits. The air was breathable but carried a faint metallic scent. She noticed that some panels responded to sound. Humming at certain pitches caused doors to shift or small lifts to move. The ship's AI was listening. Arya realized something extraordinary. The ship's intelligence was not just mechanical, it remembered. It reacted to humans in a way that suggested historical knowledge. She wondered if it could recognize her voice from past records, if humans had ever interacted with it before. The thought was tantalizing. She returned to her cell before the patrol came back. The guards had not noticed her absence, or perhaps they believed it impossible for a human to maneuver within the ship. Either way, she had learned much in just a few hours. She was not powerless. She was being underestimated. In the quiet of her cell, Arya reflected on her situation. She was alone, yes, but humans had something the Xylarians seemed to underestimate: creativity, intuition, and adaptability. Where their technology was predictable and precise, human ingenuity was unpredictable. Every problem could be solved with the right observation, the right idea, the right touch. The next day, she continued her experiment. She hummed more complex patterns, testing different parts of the ship. A small vent opened, allowing her to peek at a corridor beyond the main prison sector. She saw the guards walking their usual paths, following the same routines. Their arrogance was their weakness. Arya began to formulate a plan. She would not rush. She would observe, learn, and wait. The ship itself was already responding to her subtly. If she could gain its trust, or at least its cooperation, she might escape without confrontation. Hours turned into cycles, and she began to map the corridors in her mind. She learned the timing of guard patrols, the placement of cameras and sensors, the locations of emergency exits. She realized that the AI core was likely in the center of the ship, a massive structure that pulsed like a heart. If she could reach it, she could communicate directly and perhaps gain a powerful ally. That evening, she tested a new approach. Instead of humming, she spoke softly, reciting a phrase she had once used on her missions: "Open for those who mean no harm." The ship shivered in response, panels shifting slightly, lights brightening. She realized the ship was listening, recognizing her voice in ways the Xylarians did not understand. Arya smiled. This was the breakthrough she needed. She was not just a prisoner, she was a signal, a key, a voice the ship recognized. She did not yet understand why, but that did not matter. She had leverage, and leverage in a place like this could change everything. She spent the night preparing. She would need patience, precision, and courage. The ship was alive, but so were the guards. One wrong move could end everything. She reviewed every observation, every anomaly, every sound and vibration she had noticed. When the next patrol passed, Arya whispered her tones, nudging the ship's systems ever so slightly. A panel clicked open, a small door slid to the side, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft. Her heart raced. This was it, her first true opportunity. She paused, listening carefully. The guards were approaching, their clicks echoing in the corridor. She held her breath, pressing herself against the wall. As they passed, she slipped into the shaft, feeling the pulse of the ship all around her. It hummed in response to her presence, a subtle acknowledgement that she had been recognized. Arya moved carefully, squeezing through narrow passages, avoiding sensors, and following the patterns she had memorized. Every step was deliberate. Every sound she made was intentional. The ship itself seemed to guide her, just enough to avoid danger but not enough to alert the guards. Hours later, she emerged in a larger corridor, the heart of the ship glowing ahead. She could feel the AI core's pulse, steady and strong. Her voice had opened the first door. Now she was ready for the next step. For the first time since her capture, Arya allowed herself a small smile. She was no longer a mere prisoner. She was a strategist, a human mind navigating an alien vessel. And the ship, unknowingly or not, was beginning to recognize her as something more. The journey had only just begun. The Zalarian guards still thought she was weak, helpless, and insignificant. But Arya Solis knew the truth. Humans were far more than they appeared. And soon she would prove it, not with weapons, not with brute force, but with the power of human intellect and voice. Arya Solis crouched in the shadow of a narrow corridor, listening carefully. The pulse of the ship beneath her feet had changed slightly, almost like it was aware of her presence. The small maintenance hatch she had slipped through yesterday had led her deeper into the Zalarian vessel, into a part of the ship rarely visited by guards. This was where the ship's intelligence seemed strongest, its systems complex and alive. Her heart pounded with excitement. The ship had responded to her voice, not just responding but reacting in ways she could not explain. The panels shifted when she hummed, the doors moved when she spoke softly. Arya felt it in her bones. The ship was recognizing her, or at least something in her voice resonated with its AI core. She paused near a glowing console embedded in the wall. Lines of alien code scrolled across the screen, shifting and changing as if the machine itself was thinking. Arya studied it carefully, her training as a human explorer and linguist helping her detect patterns. Some of the symbols seemed to respond to her vocal tones. She hummed a note and a sequence paused. She tried another and the sequence moved again. The AI was listening. The realization hit her: this ship remembered humans. Somewhere in its memory banks were records of human explorers, diplomats, and heroes who had interacted with alien civilizations before. Could it be that it had met her before? Not personally, perhaps, but her voice matched something stored in its archives. Arya's mind raced. If she could access the AI, if she could communicate with it, she might gain a powerful ally. The Zalarians had captured her, thinking her insignificant, but the ship itself might recognize her value. She began to experiment carefully. First, she mimicked the tone she had practiced yesterday, softly repeating phrases from past missions. Open for those who mean no harm. The words themselves were simple, but she delivered them with clarity and intent. The ship responded. A door ahead clicked and slid open, just wide enough for her to slip through. She moved cautiously, aware that the guards could appear at any moment, but even as she progressed, she noticed a subtle shift in the corridors. Systems seemed to anticipate her movements. Lights brightened as she approached, vents adjusted to her presence, and pathways cleared automatically. The ship was protecting her, not fully, but enough to give her an advantage. Hours passed as she navigated the alien corridors. Each step brought her closer to the ship's core, the central AI hub. Along the way, she avoided patrols, observed the Zalarian routines, and learned how the aliens reacted to the ship's subtle movements. The guards began to notice unusual anomalies. Lights blinked without explanation, doors opened and closed on their own, and some minor systems malfunctioned in patterns too precise to be accidents. Yet they still underestimated her. The human is weak, one guard clicked to another. It cannot control the ship. It cannot survive. Arya smiled quietly. They were wrong. Humans were underestimated far too often. Finally, she reached a chamber larger than any corridor she had seen. It pulsed with energy, and at its center hovered the AI core, a shimmering, translucent structure filled with flowing light. It seemed alive, almost breathing. Arya felt a mix of awe and fear. This was the heart of the Zalarian vessel, and it had already begun to recognize her. She took a deep breath and spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I am Captain Arya Solis. I come in peace and I wish only to communicate." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of energy radiated from the core, subtle but noticeable. Lights around her shifted in patterns, almost like a greeting. The AI had responded to her voice. It remembered her, or at least the resonance of her human frequency. Arya realized the significance. This ship, which the Zalarians trusted completely, was beginning to listen to her. If she could fully communicate with it, she could manipulate its systems, gain knowledge of the Zalarian plans, and perhaps even turn the ship into an ally. But she could not act too quickly. The guards were still present, and they would be suspicious of any overt activity. Arya decided to observe first, gathering information. She moved quietly to a panel near the core and listened to intercepted communications. The Xylarians were planning a raid on human colonies, believing them weak and disorganized. They assumed a few patrols would be enough to intimidate humanity. Arya's mind raced. She had to warn Earth, but she also had to remain hidden. Using the ship's communication channels, she began encoding signals, tiny bursts of data disguised as maintenance signals. Slowly, carefully, she sent information to Earth's Space Command, alerting them to the impending Xylarian threat. Meanwhile, the AI core continued to respond to her presence. Arya experimented further, humming patterns and speaking phrases that she hoped would resonate with its memory banks. The ship shifted subtly, doors unlocking, corridors clearing. She could feel a growing connection between herself and the AI, an understanding forming that went beyond language. The Xylarians began to notice more anomalies. One patrol stopped in front of a corridor, staring at a door that had opened and closed on its own. "The ship is behaving strangely," one guard clicked. "It obeys the human's presence." The other guard shook its head. "Impossible. A human cannot control a Xylarian vessel." Arya hid in the shadows, suppressing a smile. They still did not understand. Humans were not strong in the way Xylarians measured strength. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, adaptable. That was their real power. As the hours passed, Arya grew bolder. She communicated directly with the AI, testing its responses. Slowly, it began to follow her subtle instructions. She could access minor systems, unlock doors, and even manipulate security cameras. Every move was calculated to avoid detection. Through the ship systems, Arya discovered an unexpected archive. Files stored in the AI contained records of past humans who had interacted with the Xylarians. And there it was, a record of her own voice, from communications she had sent during interstellar diplomacy missions. The AI recognized her not just as a human, but as Captain Arya Solis, a figure of historical importance. The implications were staggering. The Xylarians had no idea that this weak prisoner was someone who had previously been trusted by the ship itself. The AI had remembered her and in doing so had given her a subtle but critical advantage. She realized that her next move could change everything. If she could fully gain the AI's trust, she could use the ship to escape, protect herself, and even disrupt the Xylarians' plans. But she had to be careful. One wrong step could alert the guards and they would not hesitate to act. Arya spent the next cycle preparing. She mapped the ship in her mind, marking every corridor, door, and vent she had explored. She noted the timing of patrols, the location of cameras, and the behavior of the AI. Every detail mattered. Finally, she decided to test the AI in a more direct way. She approached the core and spoke clearly. "I am Captain Arya Solis. I have been recognized before. I seek your cooperation." The core pulsed brightly, almost like a heartbeat quickening. A soft hum filled the chamber, vibrating through her body. Panels shifted, doors opened, and lights brightened in acknowledgement. The AI had recognized her history. It understood her intent. Arya felt a surge of hope. This was more than she had ever imagined. The Xylarians thought she was just a prisoner, weak and insignificant. But the ship knew differently. It had recognized her value. She moved carefully, using the AI's subtle guidance to navigate deeper into the vessel. She observed the Xylarians, noting their weaknesses and assumptions. They believed humans were fragile, predictable, and inferior. They had never encountered someone like her, someone who could think beyond brute strength, someone who could communicate with the very heart of their ship. Arya realized that humans had something the Xylarians did not fully understand, adaptability, creativity, the ability to turn limitations into opportunities, and that was exactly what she intended to do. She began to formulate a plan. The AI could assist her in escaping, but she also needed to learn as much as possible about the Xylarian's fleet. Every piece of data, every movement, every intention could be used to protect humanity. She would need patience, precision, and courage. Hours passed as she explored, communicated, and tested the ship's response. Each success gave her more confidence. The AI was no longer indifferent. It was actively assisting her, though subtly. The Xylarians remained unaware of the growing alliance. As night approached in the ship's cycle, Arya paused to rest. She reflected on what she had learned. She was no longer just a prisoner. She was a strategist, a communicator, a human mind operating within an alien vessel. And the AI, once indifferent, now recognized her as something more than weak flesh. The final challenge was clear. She needed to use this connection to the AI to disrupt the Xylarians' plans, protect human colonies, and ultimately prove that humans were far stronger than the aliens assumed. The next steps would be dangerous, but Arya was ready. With determination, she whispered to the AI one final time before resting. "We are allies. Together we can show them what humans are capable of." The ship pulsed in response, a quiet, steady acknowledgement. The first stage of her plan was complete. The AI remembered her. The Xylarians did not, and humanity's unexpected advantage had begun. Captain Arya Soli stood in the glow of the AI core, her pulse steady but her mind racing. Every moment counted. The ship had begun responding to her voice fully, shifting doors, adjusting lighting, and guiding her through corridors. The Xylarian guards still believed she was a powerless prisoner, but the ship itself now recognized her. It was ready to act, not against them entirely, but in her favor, subtly, strategically. Her first objective was clear. She had to secure control over key sections of the ship while remaining hidden from the majority of the alien crew. The Xylarians were intelligent, precise, and disciplined, but they were also arrogant. They had assumed that humans were fragile, predictable, and unworthy of attention. Arya smiled quietly. That arrogance would be their downfall. She began by moving to the ship's command hub. The AI guided her through maintenance shafts, past security sensors, and into narrow corridors unseen by the alien patrols. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. The AI pulsed softly with her presence, opening doors just enough for her to pass, diverting camera views, and creating minor malfunctions that drew guards away from critical areas. When she reached the command hub, Arya found the Xylarian officers gathered around glowing consoles, discussing their plans. They were preparing to attack human colonies, confident in their superiority. She observed silently, memorizing patterns, schedules, and weaknesses. Their arrogance made them careless. Arya whispered to the AI, her voice calm but commanding, "Guide me. Help me disrupt their operations without direct confrontation." The core pulsed in acknowledgement. The ship itself was now a partner in her plan. The first phase involved isolating the guards' communications. Panels flickered as Arya manipulated signals through the ship's internal network. Alerts appeared on alien consoles, but the AI masked the source. Confusion rippled through the Xylarians. They were trained to expect precision, but their own vessel now defied them in subtle ways. The second phase required careful navigation to critical control nodes. Arya moved swiftly through hidden shafts, guided by the AI. She avoided patrols, silently disabling locks and diverting systems. Every action she took reinforced the idea that the ship itself was beginning to resist the aliens' control. Then came the moment of confrontation. The Xylarian commander, a tall figure with shimmering metallic skin, noticed anomalies in the ship's behavior. "The human, it is interfering," he clicked, voice sharp with surprise. "How can this be? It cannot control the vessel. Arya remained hidden, but her voice carried through the ship's intercom, carefully modulated to resonate with the AI. "You underestimate humans," she said softly, her tone calm yet firm. The ship responded instantly. Doors slid shut behind patrols, corridors reconfigured, and vital systems rerouted to her command. Panic spread among the guards. They attempted to regain control, but every move they made was anticipated by the AI, guided by Arya's voice. She had become more than a prisoner. She was the strategist, the conductor of the ship itself. Next, she turned her attention to communications. Using the AI's system, she sent encoded signals to Earth's fleet, warning of the Xylarian raid and providing detailed tactical information. Earth's response would not be immediate, but the information would allow human forces to prepare. The Xylarians, realizing that their plans were compromised, became desperate. They moved quickly through corridors, attempting to regain authority over the vessel. But the ship, under Arya's subtle guidance, made every move of the aliens ineffective. Doors locked behind them, sensors misdirected their search, and minor system malfunctions created chaos. Arya advanced toward the central control chamber. She knew that if she could interface directly with the core, she could gain full access to the ship's capabilities. It was risky. Direct exposure could alert the Xylarian commander, but she had no alternative. The AI pulsed in encouragement and she stepped forward. Inside the core chamber, the energy was overwhelming. Streams of light flowed like liquid, weaving patterns that seemed to anticipate her thoughts. She raised her voice, speaking clear, deliberate phrases. "I am Captain Arya Solis. I have been recognized. I seek to protect humanity and prevent unnecessary destruction." The core responded fully. Panels shifted, corridors opened, and vital systems came under her subtle control. The ship itself seemed to hum with energy, ready to act in accordance with her commands. The AI recognized her intent, her voice, and her purpose. Outside the chamber, the Xylarian commander finally confronted her. "Human, you cannot command this vessel," he clicked, his voice rising in alarm. Arya stepped forward, calm and unwavering. "Watch closely. Humans are not as weak as you think." The AI reacted instantly. Doors slammed shut around the commander's squad, isolating them. Defensive systems activated, but not in lethal ways. Arya had no desire to destroy them, only to neutralize their threat. She wanted to prove humanity's strength, not engage in needless violence. Confusion and fear spread among the Xylarians. Their belief in human inferiority was shattered. Every command they issued failed to produce the expected results. The ship, guided by Arya, anticipated their movements, countered their strategies, and protected her from harm. With the guards neutralized, Arya focused on the ship's interstellar navigation systems. She plotted a course to the Xylarians' next target, the human colonies. Using the AI's capabilities, she manipulated the ship to send false signals, diverting the alien fleet and giving humanity precious time to prepare. As she worked, she spoke softly to the AI, her words deliberate. "We are allies. Together we can show them the true strength of humans." The AI pulsed in affirmation, its systems fully responsive to her guidance. Arya realized something profound. The Xylarians had underestimated humans not because they were weak, but because they misunderstood the nature of human strength. Humans were adaptable, inventive, and resilient. Their power lay not in brute force, but in intellect, strategy, and cooperation. Hours passed as she coordinated the ship systems, sending information to Earth and neutralizing alien threats. The Xylarians, now aware of her abilities, attempted to challenge her, but every move was anticipated. They had assumed humans could be intimidated, but Arya had turned their arrogance against them. Finally, the ship reached open space near the targeted colonies. Arya interfaced fully with the AI core, gaining control of navigation, communications, and defensive systems. The vessel, once a prison, was now a human-controlled strategic asset. She sent one final message to Earth, detailing the Xylarian positions and the best way to defend the colonies. The Xylarian commander, realizing defeat, attempted one last desperate move. He tried to force the AI to override her commands, but the core recognized her voice completely and rejected his input. Arya smiled. Humans had proven that intelligence and adaptability could overcome brute force and arrogance. With the threat neutralized, Arya set the ship on a safe course, away from human colonies but still in communication range. She looked at the stars, reflecting on the journey. She had been captured, underestimated, and tested, but human ingenuity, patience, and determination had prevailed. The AI, once indifferent to humans, now acknowledged their value. Through subtle actions and recognition of Arya's voice, it had become an ally, demonstrating that even the most advanced alien intelligence could see the strength of humanity. Arya's thoughts turned to the future. Humanity had been underestimated, but this encounter would serve as a reminder. Humans were not weak, predictable, or fragile. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of incredible feats. Every challenge was an opportunity to prove their worth, and every obstacle was a chance to demonstrate their creativity. As the ship carried her through the void, she allowed herself a small smile. The Xylarians had assumed she was just a prisoner. They had assumed humans could be controlled, dismissed, or ignored. But the ship. The alien guards thought she was just a prisoner until the ship recognized her voice. Sci-Fi HFY.